Are live. So tonight's little uh, live stream is going to be about mostly linguistic stuff. I know on this channel we're all about exploring language and culture, and this one is especially language based, but it also becomes culturally tied in because I want to talk about code switching. And we can define code switching uh, a couple of different ways, but mostly on the whole, a clear definition of code switching, that would be the practice of shifting between two languages or dialects or even ways of speaking, aka communication styles, depending on the social context, the conversational partner, and the cultural setting. Uh, and so that would be the linguistic aspects of linguistic parts of code switching. But code switching, if you're talking just speaking in one language, we often might call this something other than code switching. We might just call it style shifting uh, because it's a usual thing, and anybody who's speaking a language, even if they only speak one language, to shift the style of your language depending on who you're talking to and in what setting, and yeah, the cultural context. So, for instance, if I'm hanging out with some friends who I grew up around, I'll be using a lot more slang, a lot more informal speech, all that than I would if I'm at work, for instance. Um, and so that's an example of style shifting. We call that social stylistic variation. And a similar phenomenon happens among bilinguals and polyglots, where you're not just shifting between what register of the language you're speaking, you're shifting between downright different languages and even different dialects. And it's all about conforming your speech to match the comfort level of your audience, pretty much. So that's one way to put it. And so that's the linguistic aspects of it. Now, if you want to talk about code switching for behaviors outside language, that could totally involve changing your physical appearance or the way you're dressed to really conform to a dominant culture, or to a workplace setting or things like that. So we code switch outside of language too. And it's all about yeah, matching the comfort level of the audience, or which in some cases means of the dominant culture in a given setting. And so I did want to talk about this because the other day I was interviewed for another YouTube channel, and that interview is not out yet. I will let you know when it is. And so code switching was one of the topics that we talked about, but we didn't get very far into it before we had to sort of end the interview. So I wanted to talk about it a little bit more tonight. And so I also wanted to talk about what are the social benefits, the social advantages of code switching, whether we're talking about changing language styles or changing languages entirely. Um, as well as some of the um, cognitive and mental benefits. And so, yeah, so I wanted to do that. And if anybody has any thoughts on this or any questions, please put it in the live chat if you're watching during the live stream. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, you only need to be subscribed for just 1 minute to be able to participate in the live chat. So please don't let that stop you because it's free and it's one quick click, and there you go. So, um, So I guess, yeah, I wanted to talk about what are some of the benefits, some of the advantages of code switching. And so let's start with what are the social benefits of it, right? And one would be simply fitting in, right? That helps you really fit in a lot more if you can match your language or register to the comfort level of the people you're talking to, right? And so changing your tone or the vocabulary using or even just a style to match maybe the workplace or school or maybe for a peer group and all that fitting in, that's a very good social advantage, can bring you good things. And on a very related note, it can help you avoid biases against you. It can help avoid bias, and by that I mean um, um, it can reduce the risk of negative stereotypes being applied to you, or um, yeah, or unfair behavior towards you sometimes. And that's fun that we can sort of avoid some of that by adjusting the way that we speak and the way that we present ourselves to others. I'm not saying anybody should go around being not authentic about themselves. And when I think of code switching, um, from a language point of view, if you speak multiple languages, these languages are very much part of you. So seems like you can certainly be your authentic self by switching between them, right? Like myself, yeah, I think in my experience, it's been useful to switch between languages, sometimes professionally, sometimes socially, and all that. And it's about, yeah, adapting to the culture around you, to the people around you, more than anything else, pretty much. So that's some of the social benefits, fitting in and avoiding bias and all that, as well as whether we're talking about switching between different languages or dialects, or we're talking just style shifting between formal and informal registers and whatnot. Um, the social advantages still really are noticeable, and regardless of which one we're talking about, because this can end with stronger social connections to others. Because again, you're adjusting your language and or your style to match your audience's level of comfort, and doing that really fosters. It can foster trust. It can foster empathy, and it can help you guys, well, at least feel like you're finding common ground with each other. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about fitting in, helping um, code switching, helping you fit in. And it's, yeah, all that's very good social benefits for it. And on top of that, there's some mental, cognitive advantages to this. And that is kind of funny because some of the cognitive benefits are similar to learning a second language. If you already have two or more languages, then switching between them appropriately can also bring a lot of benefits. And again, even just style shifting within one language. And so let me give you examples of what I'm talking about. For one, you've got, you can gain, what do they call it? Oh, super executive function. You know, the executive functions in your brain. So alternating between different languages or communication styles is it's a real mental workout. It's little mental gymnastics you're going through, and that can really, yeah, being a mental workout for the brain can help you have super executive functions, which are ones mostly controlled a little more by the well, anyway, I suppose it doesn't matter too much which part of the brain. Oh, hi. How's it going? Anyway, nice to see someone here in the chat. Fantastic. And so, again, yeah, you have your sharper executive functions because you're giving your brain a nice workout, and so that can be beneficial later on. And um, on top of that, on a very related note, on top of the your executive functions in your brain, oh, you're from Greece. Very cool. Nice to see you here. Thanks for being here. I myself am from Albany, which is the capital of New York State in the U.S. But anyway, so it's nice to have you here. Fantastic. And so, on a related note to sharpening your executive functions in your brain, there's actually listening to code switched content, listening to other people having code switched and whatnot, and code switching yourself. This can help improve a bilingual person's focus and that will help pretty much if you're talking about uh, improving focus will help you have better memory recall. And that to me is pretty important because I do have a brain injury anyway. And for me, so memory recall is one of the big issues that comes up a lot. So I like, and that's part of why I'm still working so much on languages because mental workout for the brain does um, help that. And it's also going to be beneficial towards helping put off the symptoms of the linguistic symptoms of cognitive decline, especially in well, people who are middle aged and older than that. And so, yeah, code switching is good for your brain. It's a nice little mental workout for you. Just like learning a second language is a nice little mental workout for you. So they end up with very similar benefits. Now, on top of that, we've got the fact that okay, frequent code switching, so switching between languages or dialects or even styles of communication, it builds mental flexibility, which can help you very much if you're multitasking, or it helps when you're switching between different tasks, different things that you're doing. If you have done a lot of code switching, which helps you improve your mental flexibility, then that will help. That will have a result in lower costs, lower mental costs of task switching, meaning it's easier to switch from doing one thing to another, or maybe even back and forth between them, without losing so much time and so much uh, so much remembering of what exactly you were doing there. And so that's important too. So it actually it will help you gain a mental flexibility, which will help you be more behaviorally flexible as well. So that's another benefit to code switching. And where are you gonna maybe run into the most people doing engaging in code switching? Like I said, even some monolingual people do this if we're talking about style shifting within the same language. A lot of people are going to do this even if you only speak one language, but again, it will depend on how formal of a setting you're in. And if you want to be really accepted in that setting, you will switch to speaking a little more formally. And so that can apply to speaking a little differently, maybe with work colleagues versus certain family members versus friends and all that, and yeah, very much helping you fit into the context that you're speaking in. And so, to me, that's something that I have to work on too. Eventually, like I said, brain injury, so I've had to do a lot of cognitive therapy and cognitive rehabilitation, and um, and one thing that helped me with that was using multiple languages and trying to sort out one language from the other, and yeah, so that's really uh, been helpful in my personal journey. But where else do we see this among, let's say, we're talking about code switching, as in switching between which language you're using, well, which languages possibly you're using. Um, that we see a lot, mostly in very among bilinguals, of course, and mostly in very bilingual very bilingual settings, bilingual communities. For example, in Miami, Florida, for instance, you will hear a lot of code switching between English and Spanish, right? And as well as, or in Montreal, Montreal within the province of Quebec in Canada, you will hear a lot of people code switching there too. And what I have noticed too is, speaking of French speakers in Canada, I've noticed more code switching in Montreal than what I've seen in Quebec City, for instance, because my Montreal is a very bilingual city, much more so than Quebec. And I've also noticed in the maritime provinces where the French they speak is not Quebecois, is not French Canadian technically, it's Acadian French, which is the one that's related to Louisiana French, right? I found that Acadians tend to do a whole lot more code switching. And and just to be clear, code switching is not just you borrowing one word at a time and sticking in one word. It's where you might actually start a sentence in one language and then finish it up in another, while all the while being grammatically correct and everything. And so that's something that too I wanted to mention how a lot of times uh, some monolingual speakers will judgmental if they hear other people code switching, and it's mostly I think it's in part jealousy that they can't understand everything that the people that the bilinguals are saying because they only understand one of the two languages. But I think it's also uh, yeah, it's they might be well judgmental and think that it somehow means not their English isn't good enough to just use English, so they have to go and use another language too. But that's really not uh, where this motivation comes from. Like I said, it's more about socially fitting in and matching to the comfort level of your audience. So it's not a sign of any bilingual person's lack of language skills. It's actually people who engage in a lot of code switching are very linguistically competent bilinguals. They have strong bilingual skills, as evidence of how the grammar doesn't break down when they switch from one language to the other. And so, and so, somebody passing a judgment on people code switching um, for thinking their language skills are not as good in one language as they should be, and finding that as the motivation for code switching, I say you're way off base in that judgment because it's more of um, matching the comfort level of the person you're talking to or the people you're talking to, the so-called audience, which often translates to matching more to the dominant culture in the area. And that's why we see a lot more of this code switching, why we hear a lot more of this code switching in communities that are more heavily bilingual. Um, and yeah, so that's what yeah, that's most of what I wanted to say. So again, code switching has a lot of social and mental and cognitive benefits, which I hope I laid out some of these enough for you in what I said. But it also is a sign of very high level of language skill in probably both languages that they're switching between. So it's in no way a sign that somebody's not good enough at one language. It's not like you might get in the case of beginning level language learners where they might fall back on their native language because they don't know enough of the other language yet. That's not very well advised. Code switching is not really advised until you've gotten a little further in your language studies, so your skills can be strong enough to swap back and forth. Whereas, so therefore, both languages, your skills in both languages can benefit from code switching instead of just keeping one language stronger and letting the other one deteriorate a little bit. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so I'm wondering if anybody has any questions on this, you can put it in the chat. Or if you're watching this on the replay instead of during the live stream, please put it in the comments. And by the way, comments are open to anybody can comment. You don't even have to be subscribed yet. But if you're watching on the live stream, you have to be subscribed for at least 1 minute to be able to chat. Um, so that's pretty nice and quick to get you there. And so, yeah, if anybody has any thoughts on code switching, I would be happy to read them aloud to the live stream. Or if you're watching this on the replay, I'd be happy to reply to any comment or question that you have that you put in the comments. That would be, uh, yeah, very enjoyable for me. I like this. I love this how on YouTube we can often after the video ends, we can really just keep the conversation going in the comment section. I do love the interactive thing about YouTube. Um, that's part of why when I'm watching videos, I'm more likely to do this on YouTube because I can really engage with the creators themselves. So anyway, if anybody has any questions or comments, I haven't seen any pop up so far in the chat. And hi again, I'm glad to have you here. But I mentioned you, and thank you, Philippe. And I'm especially thankful that you're all the way from Greece, and here I am sitting in upstate New York, and we can chat together. But since I don't see any more comments coming in, anyway, so just to recap, before I end this live stream, I don't want to jump right to the end of it because we've only been going on for like 20 minutes so far, and a lot of times people aren't there in the very beginning, so I like to recap things for them. And especially, essentially, what we're talking about today is code switching, which I mentioned could be extra linguistic behaviors, meaning outside of language, like switching how you dress or other things about your physical appearance or behaviors, even mannerisms, to help, adjust to the dominant culture or the audience, to people you're interacting with. Now, in terms of the linguistic portion of code switching, this means we're often switching between languages or possibly just between dialects. And I did want to, emphasize how there are social benefits like fitting in and avoiding bias and really building trust, maybe even building empathy or finding common grounds with other people. And so, um, yeah, building cultural connections and cultural understandings. Code switching can help with that. So good, lots of good social benefits towards it. And again, code switching and jumping between two linguistic systems in a conversation, this is a good mental workout for your brain. So it can help your memory stay a little sharper. It can also help you with flexibility on doing different tasks or switching between one task and another without it being such a big mental drain, right? So there's lots of good reasons to practice code switching. There's a lot of benefits behind it. And again, if you are somebody engaging in code switching, let's say, between French and English, if you're living in Montreal, where very bilingual city, um, that's not a sign of a lack of competence in either of the languages. It's more a sign of your skill. As a bilingual, the more highly skilled you are as a bilingual, the more versatile you can be and the better you can be at code switching. And so it's really a sign of, um, yeah, it's a sign of high linguistic skill level as opposed to, one language not being good enough. And plus, in my experience, I find that um, sometimes when I'm explaining something, sometimes it's easier to say it. It's more, well, more efficient and more accurate to say it in one language or the other sometimes because languages are not exactly equivalent, and one word in language A equals exactly one word in language B. So often I find it can be more possible for me to get the thought expressed and understood by my interlocutor, meaning the conversation partner. Um, if we're using the language that has the better expressions for this. But anyway, so don't feel bad if you are someone who engages in a lot of code switching. This does not mean you have any problem with your language skills. This is very natural. And socially, it's even done among monolinguals. They just style shift between different registers in the same language, um, as opposed to bilinguals and polyglots who can be more capable of switching between entire different languages. And so, yeah, I did want to yeah, talk about that. And again, the interview I mentioned earlier that we brought this topic up a little bit, but didn't have enough time to expand on it during the interview. That channel is called Curious About Welsh with Gen X, and Gen is spelled with a J, GEN X, not with a G, right? Um, and that interview should be coming up within next weeks. I'm not sure how many weeks exactly, but I'm gonna, hopefully, I will be a collaborator on that. So it will come out on their channel, on Gen X's channel, and hopefully it will be a collaboration with me, so it will be visible to my subscribers too. So anyway, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, and that way you can keep up with this whole thing. And yeah, and so that interview, when it does come out, we were talking about code switching. We were also talking about how to apply, if you're learning a second language, how to apply it to use it in your real life. How do you? And I had a lot of good tips on how to do that. And also, we were talking about how to get to a point where you can be thinking in your target language, thinking in a second language to you. And so, anyway, I will again let you know when that comes up. And yeah, and so please do consider subscribing to the channel. And I look very much forward to speaking with you again very soon which my next live stream is going to be on Monday, so in just a couple of days. So yeah, if you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications on, you'll be sure you won't have to miss it. So thanks a lot for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. But until then, catch you around next time. Bye bye. Au revoir, les